While most 8-year-olds are busy with simple math problems or playing tag under the warm sunshine of the schoolyard, Jayden spends every day in near silence, patiently repairing battered old computers, sketching circuit diagrams in a faded little notebook, then quietly trailing his mother, a janitorial staff member, to the gleaming headquarters of TitanTech. No one notices Jayden's presence. No one cares about the boy. But then, on a fateful day when TitanTech is struck by an unprecedented cyber crisis, it isn't the star engineers or the top executives who see what's really happening. It's Jayden. And when he softly asks for a chance to try his solution, the most extraordinary things begin to unfold. How can a child whom the world overlooks become the one to save it? What happens when a powerful CEO is forced to confront truths he has long ignored? Join us as we discover how true talent can grow in the quiet, and how the extraordinary power of being recognized can change everything. Jayden isn't a typical kid. Every morning, while others eagerly line up for the school bus, this 8-year-old black boy walks silently beside his mother, Maria, to a very different destination. America's leading tech giant, TitanTech. The glass and steel tower rises tall in the city, a hive where brilliant engineers and powerful managers work. But for Jayden and his mother, it's simply a place to work and to exist. Maria, a diligent janitor at TitanTech, moves unseen in the shadows of massive conference rooms and along luxurious carpeted corridors. Each day, she reminds Jayden to stay back, make no noise, and never call attention to himself. They must remain ghosts, invisible in a world where they do not belong. Yet, to Jayden, invisibility is not a punishment, it's a gift. It gives him the freedom to watch, to listen, to learn. No one notices the small boy quietly perched in the corner of a boardroom or the stately lobby. Every day he sits with his battered notebook in hand, recording strange technical ideas and the intricate circuits only he fully understands. Instead of playing video games or tossing a ball in the park like other kids, Jayden is enchanted by the broken electronics his mother salvages from high-end TitanTech trash bins. His small, nimble hands strip wires, solder components, and breathe life back into items thought beyond repair. To him, nothing is truly discarded, only misunderstood. At TitanTech, Jayden is wholly forgotten. Engineers chase million-dollar projects. CEO Marcus Reed worries about quarterly reports and the company's reputation, and managers sprint from one meeting to the next. No one notices the tiny black boy in the shadows, quietly absorbing every minute detail of a vast, glittering, yet chilling world. That very invisibility will one day become Jayden's greatest strength. But for now, he remains a silent child hidden in the vast halls of a tech empire, patiently awaiting his moment. Jayden had always believed his invisibility was absolute safety, until that day when, for the first time, he felt something dangerous creeping into the air around him. From his usual hiding spot in the vast 39th floor lobby, he watched ordinary faces, normally calm, grow eerily tense. A sudden cyber attack had struck TitanTech at its core, mere hours before the company was set to host a high-stakes press conference with dozens of international investors. Computer screens went dark as though blown out like candles, replaced by an unrelenting black void. Alarms shrieked in a desperate wail, plunging the entire corporation into unprecedented panic. CEO Marcus Reed, typically a frozen mask of authority, stood motionless before the giant central display, now nothing but a blank expanse. Fury and fear flickered in his eyes. His hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. Marcus was unused to feeling powerless. In nearly 20 years at TitanTech's helm, he had controlled every outcome, and that very confidence was now his most lethal weakness at this critical moment. "What's going on here?" he barked at his top engineers, who could only exchange bewildered looks. "Don't we have multi-million-dollar backup systems?" Kevin Brooks, Reed's pale, sweaty CTO, swallowed before replying, "Sir, this isn't an ordinary breach. Someone has neutralized our security protocols with an unprecedented level of sophistication. They bypassed every firewall as if they knew our defenses intimately." Marcus's throat went dry. Who could know TitanTech so completely? Who possessed the skill to dismantle the world's most advanced safeguards so quietly and so thoroughly? A torrent of questions flooded his mind, each without an answer. In TitanTech's command center, chaos reigned. Engineers sprinted between consoles, making frantic calls and trying every last remedy. Red error messages glowed defiantly on screens. A few junior technicians, overwhelmed by fear of the fallout, broke down in tears. TitanTech wasn't just losing data. It was on the brink of losing its reputation before the global elite. Through the bedlam, Jayden remained huddled in his familiar corner, clutching his battered notebook, his eyes flicking from Marcus Reed's strained features to the anxious crowd. Something about this attack felt different, something he sensed instinctively. It wasn't random sabotage, nor mere revenge. It was a message sent by someone who knew TitanTech from the inside out. A patient enemy who had orchestrated every step to strike at the company's weakest moment. Jayden tightened his grip on the notebook. He didn't yet understand the full picture, but his heart pounded with a mix of fear and fierce curiosity. For the first time, he realized that his invisibility could be vital. In this moment of utter darkness and despair, only an outsider's perspective could reveal the broader truth. Meanwhile, Marcus Reed spun around, his face frozen in suspicion as he scanned every line of code displayed on the dimmed monitors. He was starting to doubt his own team. He could not reconcile that the empire he built with sweat and ambition had collapsed so effortlessly. Deep down, he knew the architect of this disaster had once stood close beside him, and had every reason to hate him with a passion. The crisis had slipped from Marcus Reed's and TitanTech's grasp, and in the midst of that chaos, they didn't know the one person with the answer was sitting quietly in his usual corner. A small, unseen black boy named Jayden. While Marcus Reed and his senior tech team were frantically racing to contain the disaster, Jayden sat perfectly still in his usual hallway nook, seemingly swallowed by shadows, yet with eyes that gleamed strangely. Every word, every hurried footstep, every ashen face of the engineers was captured by his sharp gaze. Jayden knew that in this moment, his invisibility afforded him the clearest view of all. Just try rebooting the servers one more time. Kevin Brooks, the VP of Engineering, shouted hoarsely at his team, his voice cracking under stress. The engineers obeyed robotically, but the systems remained inert, cold metal refusing to stir. One young engineer slammed his fist on a console in a mix of anger and despair. Softly, Jayden opened his little notebook and jotted down every tiny detail he'd just overheard, then slowly circled the key phrases: reboot, malware, firewall, central server. Those words echoed in his mind, each syllable rearranging itself into a meaningful pattern. He sensed that TitanTech's engineers were trapped in their own habitual, overcomplicated thinking. Furrowing his brow, Jayden reflected that TitanTech's technicians prided themselves on having the world's most advanced security layers. Yet that very pride had blinded them to simpler, alternative approaches. Jayden realized that the solution did not lie in the convoluted fixes they were pursuing, but in the blind spot created by their own hubris and familiarity. His eyes drifted back to Marcus Reed, who now stood at the center of the crowded command center. The CEO's usual aura of authority had fractured, replaced by panic and rage. You keep telling me this is the safest, most cutting-edge technology out there, so explain this. Marcus barked. We're on the brink of losing everything because of some anonymous hacker. A trembling junior engineer ventured, Sir, we've tried everything, but every layer of security has been disabled in a highly unusual way. It's not a normal attack. Whoever did this knew exactly how we'd respond. Marcus froze. You're saying it was an insider? Jayden's heart pounded. It made perfect sense. This attacker wasn't some random cybercriminal. He or she understood TitanTech's architecture deeply and anticipated the engineer's moves. Whoever it was had spent enough time inside these systems to map out every weakness. Peering down at his trembling fingers, Jayden realized he'd unconsciously scrawled a name in his notebook. Amelia Reed. It was the name of Marcus's young daughter, something Jayden had overheard his mother mention when cleaning the CEO's private office. Marcus had often said, Amelia is the most important thing in my life. And Jayden knew from experience that what's most treasured is also most vulnerable. Lifting his gaze to Marcus once more, Jayden watched Reed ordering the security team to audit every internal account with heightened suspicion. But Jayden knew they were chasing shadows. This attack was far more cunning. It had struck at the core weakness nobody expected, one hidden in Marcus's own trust and personal attachments. The once invisible boy, the one everyone had overlooked, was now the only person who could see the harsh truth. Jayden's bright, perceptive eyes grew even more determined. This wasn't just a cyber attack. It was a psychological assault on human complacency. Slowly, Jayden snapped his notebook shut, his small hands clenching it tightly. He understood exactly what he needed to do next, and merely thinking about it sent his heart racing with equal parts excitement and fear. For the first time in his life, the invisible boy would have to step into the light and face TitanTech's most powerful figures head-on. And Jayden knew that once he emerged, there would be no going back to his quiet anonymity. Because this was no longer just his story. It was about stopping a dangerous conspiracy that could bring down an empire. He rose deliberately, notebook in hand, his eyes fixed on the command center where Marcus Reed still stood. In that instant, Jayden knew everything was about to change, and the once invisible boy was about to become the center of it all. Jayden took slow, deliberate steps toward the central control room, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He had never imagined he'd break his mother's careful rule. Stay back, stay silent, never draw attention. Yet now, an irresistible urge drove him forward. In front of him, CEO Marcus Reed stood beside the massive wall of screens, tension and anger etched on his face. His top engineers and specialists clustered around him, their voices overlapping in frantic debate with no solution in sight. "We've lost all control. Just reboot everything again," barked Frank, a veteran engineer whose bald forehead glistened with sweat. "That'll crash the system for good. We have to find the breach first," another shouted back. In that stifling atmosphere, a small voice drifted from the doorway. "Maybe you should check for a socket overflow loop." The room froze in sudden, eerie silence. Every pair of eyes swung toward the door, where Jayden stood, his small frame swallowed by surprised and annoyed stares. Whispers and scoffing laughter rippled through the crowd. "Socket overflow loop. This kid watches too much sci-fi," Frank jeered. A middle-aged engineer crossed his arms, scowling. "Who is this kid? What is he doing here right now?" Marcus Reed's gaze turned icy. He said nothing, but his eyes dripped contempt as they fixed on Jayden. After a few long seconds of silence, the laughter resumed, drowning out Jayden's suggestion as if it were nonsense. Just as Jayden bowed his head to slip away, another voice cut through the mockery, clear and serious. Wait. Actually, he might be onto something. All eyes shifted to Elias Harper, a young intern only a few years older than Jayden, standing at the back of the console row. Elias's expression was solemn, not playful. Frank shot Elias an angry, mocking look. What are you talking about, Elias? We're in crisis mode. We don't have time for genius act-outs. Unfazed, Elias stepped forward and crouched to Jayden's level. Tell me, why socket overflow loop? Jayden drew a steady breath. I read about it while fixing an old PC. A socket overflow loop isn't an external system error. It happens when an attacker understands the security architecture so well that they exploit repeated authentication requests, creating an endless loop. TitanTech's systems are showing that exact pattern. It's like a trap someone set from the inside. Elias's eyes widened in admiration. He turned to the engineers. He's right. We've been probing external vulnerabilities, but the attacker has been inside our defenses all along, using our own security protocols to lock us out. Marcus Reed frowned, his fury giving way to thoughtfulness, though his gaze remained wary. Elias, you trust a child's theory? Elias met Reed's eyes steadily. Sir, I trust logic. Jayden's description matches what we're experiencing. A socket overflow loop is rare, precisely why we overlooked it. Ignoring it now could mean TitanTech never recovers. Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't derision. The senior engineers exchanged looks of reluctant realization and shame for mocking an idea they hadn't even considered. Marcus Reed looked at Elias, then at Jayden, his coldness softening just slightly. You have 5 minutes to prove it, Elias. If you fail, the consequences will be worse than you imagine. Elias nodded firmly, then turned to Jayden. Jayden, come with me. Show me exactly where to start. For the first time, Jayden felt a surge of trust. He nodded, stepping forward beside Elias. His small hand trembled on his notebook, but his eyes were steady. In that moment, the room realized the quiet voice that rose above the chaos wasn't a random interruption. It was the spark of a fight meticulously orchestrated by an unseen enemy, waiting for TitanTech to fall into his trap. But that enemy never expected an invisible boy like Jayden to uncover the secret everyone else had missed. A tense hush still hung over the control room, but this time it was charged with expectant anticipation. Elias placed a reassuring hand on Jayden's shoulder and turned to address the entire engineering team, his gaze locking on Kevin Brooks, the scowling head of engineering who was barely restraining his frustration. Kevin, Elias began, his voice calm but firm. We've tried every conventional fix, and you've seen the results. I think we should listen to Jayden for once. What he's suggesting might be exactly what we've overlooked. Kevin Brooks narrowed his eyes, a look of contempt and irritation flickering across his face. He strode over to Elias, his tone condescending. Elias, you're young and idealistic, but we can't base our response on a vague suggestion from a child. This is a multi-million-dollar security system, not a toy for trial and error. The others exchanged uneasy glances. They respected Kevin's experience and authority, but Elias's unwavering confidence and clear logic were suddenly difficult to ignore. The atmosphere thickened, as though a single misstep could bring everything crashing down. Elias met Kevin's eyes without flinching. Mr. Brooks, I fully understand the system's value. Precisely because of that, we need to be cautious. Our attacker is exceptionally sophisticated. They know every layer of our defenses. The only thing they didn't expect was an entirely new approach, one like Jayden just proposed. Kevin snapped back. You really trust a kid's theory? Elias, this is TitanTech, not kindergarten. A few engineers chuckled, but the laughter died when Elias didn't waver. He looked at Jayden, standing quietly beside him, anxious yet clear-eyed, and spoke again, measured and authoritative. I'm not blindly trusting a child, I trust logic. Jayden explained the socket overflow loop very clearly, a rare flaw, but it matches our current symptoms perfectly. And until now, no one on our team even mentioned it, right? Kevin opened his mouth to retort, but Elias's next words came faster, decisive and unwavering. Every solution we've tried so far has failed. We're chasing the attacker's expected moves. Now is the time for the freshest, most objective perspective. In the corner, Marcus Reed observed. Though his face remained stern and cautious, a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. He waved a hand and said in a clipped, decisive tone, "All right. Kevin, Elias is right about one thing. We're out of options. Whatever hope remains, however slight, we'll give it a shot." Kevin Brooks sighed in exasperation and shot Elias a resentful look before grudgingly nodding. "Fine. Do it your way, Elias. But remember, you'll bear full responsibility if this fails." Elias simply nodded, then turned to Jayden. The boy still stood small and silent, eyes cast downward. "Jayden, it's your turn. I need you to show everyone exactly where to start." Jayden looked up, surprised and grateful for the complete trust Elias placed in him. In that moment, he realized Elias believed not only in his logic but in him, a belief no one had shown before. He stepped forward and stood before the main console. His small fingers trembled as they hovered over the keyboard. Jayden drew a deep breath and opened the command line interface he'd watched engineers use. "We need to pull up the internal authentication manager logs," he said clearly, voice soft but steady. "If a socket overflow loop is happening, we'll see the evidence here." The entire room watched in suspense as Jayden's keystrokes echoed in the silence. Elias stood directly behind him, offering silent encouragement. Kevin Brooks folded his arms in the corner, his expression a mix of doubt and impatience. Moments later, lines of unusual code appeared on the screen, flashing red warnings and endless authentication requests. Jayden pointed to the log entries. "This is the error I mentioned. The system is continuously sending and receiving futile auth requests. The attacker knew we'd keep rebooting the servers. Every reboot drives the loop deeper." Silence fell once more. This time, no one laughed. Elias smiled and once again patted Jayden on the shoulder. "Well done, Jayden." Kevin Brooks was speechless, eyes wide with astonishment. Marcus Reed stepped forward, studying the screen with mounting tension rather than skepticism. His voice rang out like a command. "Immediately trace any accounts that have recently accessed the authentication system. We have an insider." As the team sprang into action, Jayden quietly looked up at Elias. The once invisible boy had become the most important person in the room, and Elias Harper, the only one who dared to believe in him, was now Jayden's strongest ally. Yet Jayden knew this battle was only beginning. The mastermind behind the attack, the villain hiding in the shadows, had yet to reveal themselves, and they certainly wouldn't go down without a fight. A heavy tension settled over the control room after Marcus Reed's words. The engineers began scanning through the internal staff list, but no clear leads emerged. Kevin Brooks remained silent in the corner, eyes full of doubt and resentment. He glanced at Elias, then at Jayden, his expression a mix of helplessness and reluctance. Marcus Reed shifted his gaze to Jayden. For the first time, his voice lost its usual confidence, replaced by a cold tone laced with worry. We're running out of time. If there's even the slightest chance we have to try, let the boy do it." Some engineers exchanged hesitant looks, whispering objections under their breath. Yet, under Marcus's unwavering stare, they reluctantly stepped aside, clearing a path for Jayden to approach the main console. Jayden walked forward slowly, acutely aware of every gaze fixed on him, skeptical, curious, mocking. A junior engineer muttered to his neighbor, "Letting a child fix our top-tier security system? We're a joke." Jayden heard it all but forced himself to stay focused. He climbed onto the large chair at the console and sat down carefully. His heart hammered, but when his fingers touched the keyboard, they moved with unexpected calm. He knew this moment would determine TitanTech's fate and his own. He took a deep breath and typed the commands he'd learned during sleepless nights with salvaged electronics. Lines of code streamed onto the screen like a gentle rain, each character amplifying the room's collective tension. Elias stood behind him, arms crossed, eyes locked on the monitor, face earnest and hopeful. Then, a red error window popped up. Access denied. Soft sighs of disappointment rippled through the room. Kevin Brooks, unable to contain his irritation, muttered loudly enough for all to hear, "I told you, a child knows nothing." Jayden didn't flinch. He knew this was the failure he'd anticipated. His focus sharpened, and his fingers flew faster. He leaned close to Elias and spoke quietly but clearly for everyone to hear. "The system's locked by the attacker from the inside, using the highest admin privileges. We need to bypass this auth layer with a personal password." Marcus Reed frowned and stepped closer, eyes mixing surprise and suspicion. "You're talking about a personal password? Who could have admin-level credentials?" Jayden met Marcus's gaze with unwavering resolve. "The person behind this knows TitanTech better than anyone, sir. They used personal information to encrypt the top-level access, something no one would ever suspect." Marcus's face went pale as a terrifying realization washed over him. He whispered, voice trembling, "Amelia." Jayden nodded gently and typed, "Amelia, read 0408 into the admin password field." A second later, the red error vanished, replaced by the familiar system dashboard, access restored. The room erupted in stunned silence. Elias exhaled in relief and placed a grateful hand on Jayden's shoulder. "Great job, Jayden." But Marcus Reed stood frozen, staring at the screen with a look of profound pain and betrayal. "Amelia," he repeated, disbelief in his voice. Kevin Brooks approached Marcus, no longer mocking but utterly bewildered. "Marcus, how could the attacker know that? Only you set that personal password for the top-level security layer." Marcus clenched his fists, eyes bright with rage and despair. "Someone's been watching me for a long time, Kevin. Someone we all know. Someone patient enough to wait for this moment." He scanned the room, looking at each engineer, each team member, as if hunting the traitor hidden among them. The air felt suffocating. Jayden looked up at Marcus with compassion. He understood that Marcus was facing the harshest truth. TitanTech, his pride and greatest achievement, had been betrayed by the one person he trusted most. Allowing Jayden to access the system at this crucial moment not only saved TitanTech from immediate collapse, but also unveiled a darker reality. The mastermind behind this sophisticated attack was someone who had patiently lurked in the shadows, waiting to settle an old score with Marcus Reed. And Jayden knew the real battle was only beginning. It wasn't just about saving a network, it was about confronting betrayal itself, and facing a foe he had yet to see, but who was undoubtedly dangerous. Marcus Reed remained frozen in place, the cold, composed look he always wore now clouded with darkness and hurt at the sight of Amelia on the central admin screen. The control room felt frozen in time, the only sound the steady whir of server fans, a chill as cold as the atmosphere that enveloped them. The engineers, even Kevin Brooks, stared at one another in stunned silence, none daring to speak amid the harsh truth now laid bare. Jayden sat quietly at the console, his small hands resting confidently on the keyboard as his eyes scanned the data scrolling on the screen. The silence only grew more tense, for everyone knew the boy was peeling back the layers of TitanTech's security secrets in real time. "Sir Reed?" Jayden finally broke the heavy silence, his voice small but clear and confident. "The attacker not only knew your personal password, they created a hidden admin account beneath the main authentication layer. It has full privileges but is invisible to everyone." Marcus strode to the screen, his face ashen, voice trembling with panic. "How could this happen? Only I can create admin accounts. Who could do this?" Jayden looked up at the CEO with solemn intensity. "Only one person could, sir. Someone who's had direct access to your account and watched your every move for a long time. This isn't an outside hack. It's betrayal from within TitanTech itself." Jayden's words sent a wave of suspicion through the room. Colleagues glanced at one another as if the traitor stood among them. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He looked at Jayden, pain etched on his face. You're sure, Jayden?" Jayden nodded gently, his clear eyes fixed on Marcus. "Yes, sir. TitanTech's security is rock solid. No ordinary hacker could slip in like this. But this person knew exactly what password you'd choose. Amelia, your daughter's name and her birth date. That's something only someone extremely close would know." Marcus bowed his head, shoulders trembling. Memories of months past flooded him, when he confided in a trusted few about the special meaning of his daughter's name and her birthday, the most important day of his life. Those harmless details had become the dagger that betrayed his trust. Kevin Brooks stepped forward, voice tight with tension, as he addressed Jayden directly. "If you're so certain, tell us more, Jayden. Who could do this? Who's betrayed TitanTech?" Jayden frowned, knowing identifying the culprit wasn't easy. Then his gaze locked on the screen. A brief line of log data had flashed seconds before disappearing. Jayden quickly ran a deeper query. When the result appeared, his eyes widened in shock. "This is the hidden admin account," Jayden said swiftly, voice steady. "It logged in from an internal company IP at the very hours you usually meet with the engineering team, sir. The attacker waited patiently for you to leave the office before slowly executing their plan." Marcus staggered back as if struck. Kevin Brooks caught him, concern in his voice. "Marcus, are you all right?" Marcus did not answer. In his mind, only one figure stood clear. Lucas Bennett, his most trusted assistant, ever present at meetings, always loyal, now revealed as the most dangerous traitor. He turned to Kevin Brooks, voice low and ice-cold. "Kevin, where is Lucas Bennett?" Kevin hesitated before whispering, "He left the company about an hour ago, said he had an emergency investor meeting at your request, but I don't recall you scheduling anything like that." A horrific silence fell. Marcus Reed felt the world spinning. Every ounce of trust he'd built shattered. Lucas Bennett, the colleague he'd regarded as a friend, stood exposed as the traitor. Jayden rose slowly and moved to Marcus's side, voice gentle yet resolute. "Sir, the traitor is exposed, but the system is still at risk. That hidden account is designed to keep triggering internal security loops. We must remove it immediately, or TitanTech will remain under threat." Marcus looked down at the boy, gratitude mingled with deep sorrow in his eyes. He nodded, voice trembling but determined. "Do whatever you think necessary, Jayden. We won't let him destroy everything we've built." In that moment, Jayden felt the full weight of his responsibility. He turned back to the console and began methodically dismantling the rogue account, his small hands operating like those of a seasoned engineer. Everyone in the room watched his every move in rapt silence, but in the back of their minds loomed a larger question. How long had Lucas Bennett been plotting this? And could TitanTech thwart an even greater conspiracy Lucas was still quietly weaving in the shadows? Marcus stood frozen, watching Jayden's small fingers continue to fly over the keyboard. Each keystroke felt like a blow to the CEO's pride. Suddenly, every fear, every confusion, and every ounce of anger surged within Marcus. He felt utterly out of control as he witnessed his multi-billion-dollar system being commanded by a nameless child, one he'd never even registered until now. He spun to Kevin Brooks, voice ringing cold and furious. "Call security, now! I want that boy removed from our systems immediately. I will not entrust the fate of this company to someone with no credentials." Kevin Brooks hesitated for a heartbeat, uncertainty in his eyes, then snatched up his radio and summoned the guards. The control room air grew oppressively tense. The engineers exchanged worried looks, but dared not protest. Minutes later, the door flung open and two burly security officers strode in, faces set in grim determination. Marcus pointed at Jayden, thunder in his voice. "Get him out of here. Nobody else touches TitanTech's secure systems." Jayden paused his work and looked up at the door, panic flickering across his bright eyes, confusion and disappointment warring in his expression. Before the guards could advance, Elias leapt forward, planting himself between Jayden and the officers. His voice rang out with unwavering authority as he stared Marcus down. "Mr. Reed, please stop. Jayden is helping us. He just saved our network from disaster. If you have him removed now, everything will collapse completely." Marcus's gaze blazed at Elias. "Who are you to challenge my orders, Elias? Don't forget who I am, and whose company this is." Elias held his ground, calm yet emphatic. "I know exactly who you are, sir. And right now, you're letting personal fear cloud your judgment. Jayden is not the enemy. He is the only one defending our systems. If we remove him now, we'll be the ones destroying TitanTech." The room fell silent, all eyes on Elias and Marcus. No one expected a young intern to defy the most powerful man in the company. The security guards hesitated, awaiting a clearer command. Marcus stepped close to Elias, voice low and glacial. "Elias, if you're wrong, the consequences will go far beyond losing your job. Do you understand that?" Elias looked Marcus in the eye, unflinching. "I understand completely, Mr. Reed. But if I'm right, and I'm certain I am, this is TitanTech's last chance to survive." Marcus studied Elias in tense silence, his anger warring with growing helplessness. The control room held its breath, security officers unsure whether to act on their orders. In that moment, Jayden rose slowly from his chair. His voice was soft, but carried unmistakable clarity through the hush. "Sir Reed, I understand why you doubt me. I don't blame you for that. But the real traitor still has partial control of our systems. I need just a few more minutes to fully neutralize that account. Please trust me one more time for all our sakes." Marcus hesitated and then motioned to the guards to stand down, his tone still guarded but less harsh. "All right, Jayden, you get exactly 5 minutes. But remember, this isn't a game. One mistake and I won't show mercy." Jayden nodded gently, returned to the keyboard, and dove back into the complex code. Elias hovered beside him, offering silent support with his steady gaze. In the corner, Marcus leaned against the wall, fists clenched as he fought back his fear and fury. Elsewhere in the city, in a dim hotel room, Lucas Bennett stared at his laptop with a calculating smile. He knew Marcus had discovered the betrayal, but he felt no panic. His plan was bigger than simply crippling TitanTech. He intended to force Marcus Reed to his knees and make him pay for every slight and injustice of the past. Lucas took a measured sip of whiskey, eyes flicking to the clock on his screen. Time was running short, but he was confident he still held the upper hand. He hadn't expected a wild card like Jayden to derail his perfect scheme. Yet Lucas Bennett didn't concede easily, and he still had a final card to play. Back at TitanTech, Jayden remained laser-focused on his task, unaware that the real enemy was watching his every move from the shadows, ready to strike again. This confrontation was far from over, and now it was not just a battle of technology, but a clash between trust and the bitter sting of betrayal. Inside the control room, every eye is fixed on Jayden, the air thick with anxiety and tension. Marcus Reed, though he stepped back, quietly watches the boy with lingering doubt. Elias stands close by Jayden's side, determined to shield him from the judging stares of the other engineers. Meanwhile, Jayden is utterly absorbed in the scrolling lines of code on the screen, peeling away layer after layer of the traitor's intricate security measures. With each passing minute, Jayden delves deeper into the encrypted data and begins to notice something strange. This isn't the work of an ordinary hacker. There's a distinctive style at play, a way of thinking Jayden finds eerily familiar. The structure of the commands, the variable names, even the method used to create decoy loops, all of it mirrors Jayden's own coding habits. His heart pounds faster as unease creeps in. He realizes the mastermind behind this attack isn't just some brilliant programmer. He's someone like Jayden himself, isolated, abandoned, forgotten, who taught himself everything in the shadows. Jayden's hands tremble slightly when a faint comment appears amid the jumbled characters. This is how the world treats forgotten talent, Marcus. Just that one line, a bitter, ringing accusation, echoes in Jayden's mind. The saboteur isn't merely targeting TitanTech. He's sending Marcus Reed a personal indictment. Jayden looks up at Marcus, who stands motionless, his face cold but his eyes anxious. Marcus seems to sense the gravity in Jayden's expression. Elias notices the change instantly and leans in to ask softly, "Jayden, what have you discovered?" Jayden inhales sharply, steadying himself, then replies in a low but clear voice, "The person behind all this isn't a typical hacker. He used to work at TitanTech, very close to you, Mr. Reed, but you probably never recognized his talent or dedication. He was cast aside and ignored, and that's what turned him into today's saboteur." Marcus startles, his eyes lighting up as if a painful memory has resurfaced. He strides quickly to Jayden's side, voice trembling with genuine confusion and fear. You just said he worked for me? Who is he?" Jayden pauses, his clear eyes meeting Marcus's, filled with both empathy and concern. "I don't know his real name yet, but I can tell he was in your senior engineering division. He left very distinct traces, but nobody noticed. He lived in isolation, always trying to prove himself and never acknowledged. In the end, his frustration and loneliness drove him to seek revenge." Marcus Reed's face goes ashen as he murmurs, burdened by guilt, "Lucas Bennett. He proposed ideas I dismissed, initiatives I thought were pointless and a waste of time. Could he have—" Jayden nods quietly but firmly. "Lucas used those very ideas to build this attack. That's why he knows your thought process. how the system works, and all your biggest vulnerabilities. In a cramped hotel room, Lucas Bennett's eyes are glued to his laptop screen. The smile on his face fades as he realizes Jayden has uncovered his secret. Clenching his fists in anger, he reflects that he never imagined his perfect plan could be thwarted by an unknown boy like Jayden. He remembers the years of isolation at TitanTech, every groundbreaking idea he pitched being coldly rejected by Marcus. Late nights spent researching alone in the dark, every effort deemed worthless by Marcus's indifferent gaze. That bitterness ignited a deep-seated hatred and fueled his flawless revenge plot. He glances at the timer on his screen. Time is running out. He must make one final move. Lucas opens a small program, types a rapid sequence of commands, and activates his ultimate failsafe. A warning flashes. Emergency protocol activated. All TitanTech data will be erased in 10 minutes. Leaning back in his chair, face set in icy determination, he whispers, "Marcus, if I can't win, I'll drag you into the abyss with me." Back at TitanTech, Jayden's chest tightens when a new window pops up. Alert, data wipe protocol engaged. Time remaining. 10 minutes. Marcus and Elias spin toward Jayden, their faces drained of color. Marcus's voice quavers with desperation. "Jayden, what's happening?" Swallowing hard, Jayden meets their gazes with unprecedented seriousness. "Lucas just triggered the final wipe protocol. We have exactly 10 minutes to stop him. Otherwise, everything TitanTech has built will vanish." Marcus Reed feels his legs grow weak. The final showdown has begun, and this time, the true enemy isn't just Lucas Bennett, but the mistakes of the past and Marcus's own darkness. Now, the fate of TitanTech rests in the hands of Jayden, the once invisible boy, the only one capable of halting a brilliant genius's fury. Time seemed to freeze the moment Jayden confronted the glaring red warning blinking on the screen. The cold countdown echoing in his mind felt like an invisible blade, each second bringing TitanTech one step closer to disaster. 9 minutes, 55 seconds. 9 minutes, 54 seconds. The entire control room fell into a frightening silence. Marcus Reed stared intently at Jayden, his breath caught in his throat. Elias stood by the boy's side, a reassuring hand on Jayden's shoulder, lending what little strength he could in the midst of this crisis. Kevin Brooks and the other engineers watched in tense quiet as Jayden's small fingers danced over the keyboard. Jayden took a deep breath, his eyes laser-focused. He began rapidly analyzing the structure of the malicious code, his heart racing as he realized its sophistication far surpassed anything he'd ever encountered. Lucas Bennett wasn't merely trying to destroy TitanTech. He intended to make Marcus pay for his past coldness and indifference by stripping away everything he'd built in his lifetime. Line after line of code unfolded like a dark labyrinth, each segment imbued with Lucas's deepest emotions: loneliness, despair, and hatred. Jayden could sense Lucas's memories in the way he'd programmed this virus. Every loop, every variable carried a personal accusation aimed squarely at Marcus. And it was precisely this deep understanding that gave Jayden the clue he needed to counter Lucas's destructive plan. 7 minutes, 30 seconds. 7 minutes, 29 seconds. Sweat beaded on Jayden's forehead as his fingers flew over the keys, fighting off wave after wave of malicious loops. Yet every time he breached one layer of security, another sprang up in its place. Lucas had meticulously prepared for this digital duel, using all the skills he'd honed in isolation to create a deadly trap. In a dimly lit hotel room, Lucas watched Jayden struggle with a self-satisfied smile. He whispered bitterly, triumphant, "Marcus, you made me. You turned me into the thing you feared most. Now you'll pay." 5 minutes. 15 seconds. 5 minutes. 14 seconds. Jayden paused for just an instant, scanning each line of code as if searching for something hidden. Then he stopped cold when he noticed a comment rendered more clearly than ever before. "Every door has a key, Marcus, but you never bothered to find it." Jayden's eyes flared with determination. Lucas had inadvertently revealed his most crucial clue. This virus wasn't written solely from rage. It was also a desperate plea for recognition. It was no mere trap, but Lucas's last-ditch SOS, an appeal from a man who tried repeatedly to show his worth, only to be rejected and forgotten. Jayden's gaze flicked to the core of the virus, where Lucas had embedded an emergency kill switch, like a hidden key within the source code. His hands moved as though guided by instinct, typing the complex commands needed to reach the very heart of the malicious program. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. 3 minutes, 44 seconds. Marcus, unable to contain his panic any longer, called out sharply, "Jayden, we have almost no time left. Hurry." Jayden nodded silently, lost in his own world where each line of code felt as vivid as Lucas's anguished confession. Finally, Jayden found it. A small code segment named with surprising simplicity, Amelia Key. He understood immediately. Lucas had never forgotten Marcus's stories about his daughter Amelia, the person who mattered most to him. That was the key Lucas had left behind. A final vulnerability born of the fragment of empathy he still carried from the past. 2 minutes, 10 seconds. 2 minutes. 9 seconds. Jayden swiftly entered the command, applying the Amelia key to disable the data wipe protocol. But the moment the command was executed, a mocking message appeared. "This key isn't for you, Marcus. It's for the one who truly knows me." Jayden froze for just a heartbeat, then retyped the command, this time appending a short message. "I understand you, Lucas. You are not alone. I know how it feels, but this isn't the way to be seen." The message sent, the screen fell silent, as though awaiting Lucas's response. 50 seconds. 49 seconds. 48 seconds. Lucas stared at the message, his hand trembling. He had never expected genuine empathy from someone he'd never even met. He'd never imagined anyone could truly understand what he'd endured. But the anger and resentment in his heart ran too deep. With a bitter sigh, he whispered, "It's too late." He tapped a few keys to sever the connection and abandoned his plan. Lucas knew he had lost, not to TitanTech's defenses, but to the compassion of an unknown boy. 20 seconds, 19 seconds, 18 seconds. Back in TitanTech's control room, Jayden watched as the malicious code halted entirely, as if Lucas himself had called it off. Seizing the moment, Jayden typed the final command to neutralize the data wipe once and for all. Seconds later, the screen glowed a calming shade of green. "System fully restored. Safe." The room erupted in stunned silence, then relief. Marcus Reed could hardly believe his eyes. Elias hugged Jayden's shoulder, pride shining on his face. One by one, the engineers broke into applause, then cheers, as if a colossal weight had been lifted from their shoulders. But Jayden remained still, eyes fixed on the screen, his heart racing. He had won this battle, but he also understood exactly what he'd faced. Not just a hacker, but a reflection of himself. A forgotten genius who once stood at the crossroads of darkness and light and chose the wrong path. And Jayden realized that this victory didn't just save TitanTech, it showed him more clearly than ever the path he must follow. The control room's clamor of applause and congratulations for Jayden gradually faded into silence. Marcus Reed stood frozen in the corner, his gaze fixed on the large screen replaying Jayden's every keystroke as he dismantled the virus. Watching Jayden's small yet confident fingers, Marcus felt his heart tighten. The image stirred a long-buried memory he had spent years trying to forget. Those memories, once thought lost amid life's hustle, surged back in vivid detail. Marcus saw himself as a boy, orphaned and living in a shabby, cold children's home. Like Jayden, he had been a gifted tech prodigy no one would recognize or acknowledge. And in that lonely orphanage, he'd had a close friend, equally brilliant, endlessly curious about machines, but perpetually overlooked and alone. That friend was Liam, a quiet, small-statured boy whose eyes lit up whenever he spoke of radios and circuitry. Marcus remembered Liam spending hours disassembling broken radios, his tiny hands stained with grease. He would beam with pride whenever he fixed a device, only to have the caregivers dismiss it as childish play. One day, Marcus decided to leave everything behind in search of a better life. Before he departed, he promised Liam he would return to help him. He would never abandon his friend. But once Marcus found success as the powerful CEO of TitanTech, he forgot that promise. He became so consumed with building his empire that he failed to remember his dearest friend, left waiting in vain. A bitter lump formed in Marcus's throat as he admitted to himself that he had become the very kind of person he once despised. Cold, indifferent, judging people solely by status and power. That was why Lucas Bennett, once his star engineer, had grown bitter and betrayed him. Lucas, like Liam and like Jayden, had tried to prove his worth but was ignored by Marcus. Without another word, Marcus turned and hurried out of the control room. He had to make things right. This painful awakening had changed everything for him. He could not allow his mistakes to repeat. As dusk fell, Marcus drove himself to the rough neighborhood where Maria and Jayden lived. The narrow, cracked streets were a far cry from the gleaming world he knew. He parked at the end of a small alley, stepped out, and stood before their modest home. A single, flickering yellow light shone from the window, weighing heavily on his heart. Taking a deep breath, he gently knocked on the door. He heard light footsteps on the other side, and then Jayden opened it, eyes widening in surprise. "Mr. Reed?" Jayden asked softly, a mix of suspicion and astonishment in his voice. Marcus offered a small, steadying smile. "Jayden, may I come in and talk for a moment?" Maria appeared behind Jayden, her face etched with fear and worry. "Mr. Reed, have we done something wrong?" Marcus shook his head gently, more sincere than he had ever been. "No, Maria, quite the opposite. I'm the one who's been wrong." He stepped inside and looked around their humble home. Simple furnishings, a few old electronic parts scattered on the table. In an instant, he was back in that orphanage room, seeing those broken gadgets Liam once loved to repair. Marcus sat down opposite Jayden and Maria. His voice trembled but rang with honest emotion. "Jayden, today you saved TitanTech, but you also helped me see the mistakes of my life more clearly than ever. I abandoned a friend so much like you, a boy with incredible talent who was forgotten. I thought status and power were everything, but I was wrong, dead wrong." He paused, his tone heavy with feeling. "I want to make amends for that mistake, Jayden. I don't want you to endure what Liam did, being forgotten and left to the shadows. I want you to have every chance to develop your gifts, recognized for your talent and passion, not for status or money." Jayden's eyes filled with tears, but he said nothing. Maria placed a trembling hand on her son's shoulder, sensing the genuine change in the man before them, so different from the cold Titan she knew at the company. Marcus reached into his jacket and produced a small access card, setting it gently on the table. This card gives you unrestricted entry to all TitanTech research labs and data archives. It's yours from this moment on. You've got no limits now, Jayden. You can break anything you want. Just find something new. Jayden stared at the card, his small hands trembling as he took it. He looked up, emotion shining in his eyes, and said quietly, "Thank you, Mr. Reed." Marcus returned the smile with genuine warmth, feeling a lightness in his chest he hadn't known in years. "No, Jayden, thank you. You've helped me rediscover the person I lost, and from today forward, I promise I will never forget what truly matters." In that moment, Marcus understood that he had not only saved the future of TitanTech, but that this bright, talented boy, through his innocence and skill, had rescued Marcus himself from a wound he had buried deep in his own heart. Leaving Jayden and Maria's small but warm home, Marcus walked back to his car in a completely different frame of mind. The images of Jayden's resilience, passion, and determination kept replaying in his head, leaving him both pained and hopeful. Marcus realized that today's encounter wouldn't just change Jayden's life, it was changing him as well, transforming him from a cold man into someone who truly listened and recognized people's real worth. The next morning, Marcus arrived at TitanTech earlier than usual and immediately called an emergency meeting of the executive team. The lead engineers and senior managers were astonished to see their famously stern, unapproachable CEO stride into the boardroom with a seriousness and emotion they had never witnessed before. Marcus stood slowly before the assembled staff, his sincere gaze sweeping over the curious, expectant faces. "I want to share something I've long forgotten. Here at TitanTech, we've prided ourselves on cutting-edge technology and innovation, but there's something more important than any technology, and that's people. I was wrong to judge talent by background or social standing, and I promise I will never make that mistake again." The room fell utterly silent. Those same eyes that once held reserve and doubt now shone with attentiveness, emotion, and admiration. Marcus continued, his voice warm but firmer than ever. "From today onward, TitanTech is going to change. I'm establishing a special scholarship fund called Second Chances, dedicated to brilliant young minds who've been overlooked by society. Kids like Jayden, who have the power to change the world, but have never been given the opportunity to prove it." Kevin Brooks, standing in the back, nodded with genuine emotion. Elias smiled proudly. Marcus pressed on, now resolute. "And I've decided that we won't stop at scholarships. TitanTech must create real opportunities. I am officially inviting Jayden to join TitanTech in a special capacity, not as an intern or regular staffer, but as an independent researcher. I want him to have the freedom to learn, to create, and if necessary, to break things." A few people chuckled lightly, then fell silent when Marcus spoke even more earnestly, "Because only by shattering outdated limits can we discover new paths." Immediately after the meeting, Marcus Reed summoned Jayden and his mother Maria to the company headquarters. He greeted them not in a lavish private office but in TitanTech's largest research lab, where top engineers awaited. Jayden stepped inside in wonder, eyes wide at the advanced equipment he had once only dreamed about. Marcus approached, crouching to meet Jayden's eye level. His tone was gentle yet heartfelt. "Jayden, today I formally invite you to join TitanTech. We need you." Jayden hesitated, scrutinizing Marcus, then asked with clear, determined conviction, "Will I still be allowed to break things while I learn, Uncle?" Marcus laughed, a genuine, relieved laugh he hadn't felt in years. He felt as if a burden had been lifted from his heart. His voice was kind and encouraging. Absolutely, Jayden. That's precisely how we uncover our best ideas. TitanTech isn't just a place to build new technology. It's a place where people can learn from their mistakes and failures. I want you to always remember that here, true talent is always recognized. Maria wiped tears from her eyes and squeezed her son's hand. She knew this moment didn't just open a brilliant future for Jayden, it signaled a monumental shift in how society recognizes and values every individual's gifts. From his corner of the research lab, Elias smiled in satisfaction, knowing that his decision to stand up for Jayden had played an important role in this positive change. Kevin Brooks stepped forward and patted Jayden on the shoulder, whispering warmly, "Welcome to TitanTech, Jayden. I've learned something invaluable from you. Never judge anyone by appearance or age." Jayden returned the smile, his eyes sparkling with genuine joy and pride. For the first time, he truly felt seen, acknowledged, and respected by the very people who had once doubted him. Outside the TitanTech building, under the bright morning sun, Lucas Bennett watched from a distance. His face was no longer twisted with anger or hatred, but instead thoughtful, at peace. Though he had failed, he realized there was another way to be seen and heard, without destroying everything. He turned and walked away, determined to seek a new path, one Jayden had shown him through courage and empathy. In that moment, Marcus, Jayden, Maria, Elias, and even Lucas Bennett understood that a better future isn't built on power or money, but on understanding, compassion, and belief in each person's true talent. From that day on, TitanTech would not only lead in technology, but stand as a symbol of innovation and faith in human potential, a new era where every gift, no matter its origin, could flourish. Jayden's story wasn't just about a young genius overcoming prejudice. It was living proof that true talent can emerge anywhere. Sometimes, all it needs is empathy and a chance to shine. What would you do if you were Marcus Reed and discovered Jayden's talent? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep bringing you more inspiring stories. See you next time.